begin the signal. If you would rise, ladies and gentlemen, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing as we remember those who have lost their lives in defense of this country, abroad, here at home, and in our community. We especially remember Glenn McLeod. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Take this in two parts. I mentioned we did put an award into Orange County. We'll find out about that soon. I really didn't have too much information, but I do now. I have some. So I do just want to welcome everyone here, and I want to begin with just a few notes on one of our board members who will be retiring from the board this April. Little did I know that, I'm thinking he's on the board, he did a lot. No, he did a lot. Let's start with some of the service that he did. He coached Little League here in Highland Falls. He was on the auxiliary police when we had auxiliary police. But then let's look at some of the things he dabbled in for a couple of years. He was in the U.S. Army for 5 years. He was on the village board for 23 years. He was in the African Americans Men's Club and a past president for 17 years. St. John's AME Zion Church. He was a member. He was the chancellor of the choir for 14 years. He was the president of the choir, chairman of the board. There's a lot of numbers here. Could add up to over 100, I'm not sure. But, and then let's move on. The Newburgh Highland Falls chapter of the NAACP. Executive member, 10 years. Turn the page. Blacks in Government at West Point, 10 years. Democratic Committee in Highland Falls, 7 years. Highlanders Senior Citizens Club, over 20 years. American Legion, 15 years. Town of Highlands Recreation Commission, 2 years. 4th of July Committee, 15 years. I don't know how you had time to have a family. I had those notes somewhere, and the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren are running all over this community. I don't know how you had time for that, my friend, with all this going on in his life.
That's some good planning.
So, because of the fact that you have, I think he's going to pull it last minute. I still think he's going to slip it in. He may run on his own ticket. I think he might pull it off. But if in case he doesn't, if you would join me up front, Mr. Brown. We have a resolution, and we've given very few of these out, because very few people in this community have given the kind of commitment that Mr. Brown has given to this community. It's a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Highland Falls, February 17, 2015. Whereas, it is eminently fitting that the Board of Trustees adopt a suitable resolution expressing commendation and appreciation for the untiring and long-standing service rendered to the Village of Highland Falls by Harold Brown. I'm going to pause there. As Village Trustee, Sanitation, Street and Water Commissioner, that the village clerk be authorized and instructed to place a copy of said resolution in the official minutes of the village and to transmit a copy thereof to Mr. Brown. And whereas Mr. Brown served the village from August 1993 to April 2015, giving generously of his time, efforts, and unselfishly in all deliberations, now, therefore be it resolved that the Village of Highland Falls extend to Mr. Brown its humble expression of gratitude for him in faithfully serving the village and best wishes in good health, success, and prosperity for many, many years to come. Signed by all the trustees. And don't worry, he's still involved in another 42 organizations, so he still has a couple things on his plate. But I just want to congratulate you, Mr. Brown, and thank you for your service to this family. And we will take a note from a community member at the last meeting. And this is not just gonna go over to Mr. Brown and put up on the wall. We will have this resolution up on the wall here, to stay here in the village for always. And we're gonna backtrack and get the one or two others that we've had over the last 20, 30 years. And that's it. That's all there is. To be up on the wall so people remember the dedication of our community members. And once again, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. How you want to say a few words?
First, I would like to thank God for being here tonight. And he's a big part of this all happening because I had nothing to do with it. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to the community of Highland Falls, I want to thank you for all the 23 years of trust that you invested in me, and I hope I met all your expectations. I want to thank each department, the water department, sewer department, DPW department, fire department, police department, and the Gina Bory and her members, Stella Bailey. And I want to thank the ladies downstairs. We have an awesome administrative staff. Can't beat them. I think they're one of the best in New York State. I want to thank the board members. I've enjoyed working with all board members, past and present. It's been a good journey for me. And I guess you might wonder why I lasted so long. Every year that my wife would ask me, but I would tell them, this is it. My kids, this is it. Then I turn around and things changes. I guess the reason being because I stop and wonder, have I done enough? And I felt that I hadn't, so here we go again. So this time, I think this is it. My kids still don't believe it. They still calling, Dad, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And they won't believe it until they see it. So I've had a wonderful, wonderful experience. And again, I think I did it again too because I appreciate the place of being able to raise 6 wonderful kids with no problem. So that was part of my paying back to the village also. And besides that, I love the village. Village has been good to me and my family. And I also want to say, if she's watching, I want to thank my wife because I couldn't have did it without her.
That's true.
I want to thank all the employees. All the employees, I want to thank them for your dedications and your efforts that you've given me throughout the years that I've served the village. And thank you, I love you, and nothing you can do about it.
All right. And Mr. Brown's family is here, a small portion of his family is here with us, and I just want to thank them for giving us Mr. Brown for so many years and letting us have him while he helped the community out. I had mentioned we've had other people that have served and done a phenomenal job, but Mr. Brown did it right, like Derek Jeter, where he announced in the beginning of the season that he was retiring, so that all the things happened throughout the season. So Mr. Brown did it right because he did it before the end of his term, so that we were able to honor him, and I appreciate that. This is not the only honoring. He is going to be honored on March 3rd. There'll be a brunch over at the West Point Club. And the Democratic Committee is also having an honor are honoring him, whew, Lord, are honoring him over at Barnstormer in Fort Montgomery. And Mary Jane, when is that?
I don't remember, I'm sorry.
I don't remember either. But they're in the paper, both those events. So get involved, and if you want, please be there to say thank you to the phenomenal years. March 7th? That's the 7th. Okay, great. So the 3rd and the 7th. Oh, just the 7th.
The 7th,
7th for the
I don't know.
brunch. Thank you. All right. Fantastic. I want to mention our other honoree during the mayor's report. But right now, I'd ask for any public comments on agenda items. Department head reports, wastewater. Yeah.
Wastewater, average
I
volume
feel
of,
like you're trapped.
yeah. Average volume of wastewater treated per month, 435,000 gallons, 4.6 inches of precipitation. Facility metal speedy permit limitations, Pelwood Lake pump stations, Haven Road check regularly and operating properly. 10.62 tons of digested sludge from the filter press disposed by Spectra Serve, built filter press in operation 5 days. John Jones attended a meeting at Village Hall about a potential snowstorm emergency, January 26th. Trico Electric installed 2 new motors in a non-portable water system and control panel. Painted the laboratory, conference room, and restrooms and control maintenance building 7 days. Maintenance, lubrication of pumps, motors, and machinery as required. Maintenance of buildings and grounds as time allowed, 27 days. Man hours lost due to sick, vacation, personal time, and compensatory leave time, 15 days. Gas consumption, 87 gallons. That's it for last month.
Excellent. Treasurer will give his report a little later. We have a report from Fran Galou, and I want to thank her for her efforts. Excellent report here. She's pleased to send forward a very proud, positive update with regard to the senior center and the opening of this wonderful gathering place to all the older adults of the town of Highlands. There will be a delay in opening, hard work in hand with the village clerk, Gina Taylor, and DPW Kevin Hurst. We're able to get the insurance claim organized and satisfied through the insurance adjuster. All repairs are in progress and being completed with the anticipation completion date at the end of February. Orders received. Improvements completed with the help of Jack Sibley and Kevin Hurst. They have a new hot water heater tank in. The new handicap toilet has been installed. And they're expecting a donation of 1 more handicap toilet, which we installed in the ladies' room as well. Minor repairs are still ongoing. The tables and chairs that have been were ordered have been in. Items necessary to open. We have 4 items necessary to open. We are doing a cleaning. They're looking for those 4 items, which we are going to talk about tonight. And one request that doesn't have monetary value. Permission to meet with the engineer and begin to work on grant funding. So she's not just taking notes and looking at the building. This is what we look for in someone in charge of one of our groups. It's not about day to day. It's not about what they did last week, we'll do this week. Fran is breaking new ground. One of her big things is she's going after the money, and that's what we need. And we appreciate her effort, yes.
A couple of things, the 4 items that she listed.
Right.
Only one of them is also duplicate of the other repairs, that's the Time Warner. But the other things, she is asking for the board to give her approval to either get those necessary items either out of the village budget or out of the senior fund that Ed takes charge of. There's a little bit of money in that senior fund donation account.
Right.
So either way, she would need the board to approve to be able to get them, and then which fund that you would take them out of.
Okay. That's not a problem. We can do that in new business.
Mhm.
We're doing a new section. Dr. Nawaz will probably be here hopefully at the next meeting. We want to thank him. Though some people say the stop signs at the top of Mountain Avenue will cause more problems. I've seen a lot of great things already coming. The slowing down, I think the traffic is definitely under control. I think it was a good thing, and he was the one that pushed for that with the supervisor and myself. And because of that, they went up the road, and and the signs got in, so we wanted to thank him. I also just wanted to, we had mentioned Ann Molina, we gave there are 2 awards for the seniors, and again, I didn't have her information as well, but just to give you the flavor of 2 people that give themselves to this community. Ann Molina was, she did domestic violence prevention instructor for 3 years in New City, Sarah Wells Girl Scouts Board of Directors. She was on the NAACP, Life Member, Executive Board, Democratic Committee, 4th of July Committee, Hudson Valley Women's Association, she's the founder and president. Friends Working Together, Orange County Drugs and Alcohol Prevention Program, Highlander Senior Group, the Center, she's the founder and the director of the center here on Main Street. And that's one of the biggest things, and the only other thing that was sent up was the fact of what she did with the center. As most people do know, she took a leap of faith. And that is what both Mr. Brown and her believe in very strongly. And that is, she took a leap of faith, prayed to God, and took a loan out on her house and to open up the center. And we have, you can't thank enough the people in our community, and we have so many. And it's great when we can actually recognize the ones that step out. Discussion. Let's put the aside for now. DPW catch basin bid documents. If you have those in front of you, you have time to look those over. If you have any questions, touch base with Al. And then we will take care of that at the next meeting. Okay? Any discussion on that? Are we able to move forward in the old guard development agreement, or is that gonna be next meeting? Is that ready to go? You're good? You guys are good? All right, we'll do that, we'll move that to new business. Do we have that document in the packet? No. Is everyone's good with that, though? They've looked it over?
No, I just want to do it.
Okay.
What's that?
The old guard development agreement, it's part of the, it's for the hotel. If we're not,
Where the developer has certain obligations, and the city, the village is allowing him to go forward, but he has to follow the planning board's, I'll call it resolution, and he's going to have to put up certain markers, that is, so that he cannot just come in here and start building. He has certain things that he has to do along the way. And this agreement talks about that, and it also talks about how our engineer will examine what he's done. And we provide for the payment of the engineer with monies that will come from the developer. And we also have the developer guaranteeing that certain things will happen, that the off-site improvement will be guaranteed for a year, and that there will be monies put aside, not just in words, but in money, so that if something is not right within the year, the money will be used to repair it.
That'll
make
be
it
good
right.
escrow.
Yes. Then we've got, in addition to escrow, where there's other things that'll have to go, this developer will have to put up an irrevocable letter of credit to a bank that does business in New York State, and that we recognize as solid. And there are 2 or 3 purposes for him to do that in different paragraphs that the planning board has said we're looking for some security for the completion of what he's going to do. And if he doesn't complete it, then we have to have enough money to have it completed. And so that's going to come by virtue of a letter of credit. And that's what this agreement is about. In the meanwhile, we also authorize him to go forward.
the biggest thing is that, as you guys noted and Bill had mentioned, safeguards. Safeguards so we're not stuck with a white elephant that's gonna sit on a road and do nothing. And no one's gonna want, because they have to pick it up in the middle of a construction, or it's something that it's not even buildable at that point. So I wanna thank Bill, because
That was a nice pickup,
Yeah.
though. Yeah, it really was, because I just thought the bond would take care of all these wonderful things that, so I appreciate that.
all those in favor, we'll start with new business then. I need a motion to approve the Old Guard Developers Agreement, no? I always have to look in the back. So, okay, you were doing that.
Did Jim have something to say?
Jim, please.
You're approving the language now, I believe, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong.
Are you good with that?
I'm fine with it, that's a village document. You're approving the document as written by Bill, forwarding it to the old guard, so they can review it and then get back in touch with you, so that may change, just so you guys know. Right, Bill?
It may change, and then again, we may not want it to change.
Correct, correct.
This is
But,
what we're looking for, and now it's gonna go to the old guard.
absolutely, yeah,
Good?
absolutely.
Thank you, Gene, I appreciate that, yes.
And it's it's absolutely consistent with the goals of the planning board.
Absolutely.
What it does
Excellent.
is it fits inside the planning board resolution that Mr. Young put together with Jim.
Excellent. Okay, so do I have a motion to accept the Old Guard Developers Agreement?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Pretty bad.
We'll move on to the requests for the senior center. We'll start with the cable, that's a separate request in your packet. As of right now, luckily, then this is why we rely so heavily on the clerks, that we don't just, paperwork doesn't come in and we just pay it. Initially, they gave us like a $350 bill a month for cable, with the phone and internet. And luckily, the clerks were like, what? So right now, it's at 147. I think we can do better, but we need to get the phone and cable up and running. I appreciate them going out and making this happen. Fran Galoo again, putting them together on our own time. So do I have a motion,
Hold on. This is phone, internet, and cable?
correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to accept the payment of the contract with Time Warner Cable for $147.99 for the senior center?
I'll make that motion.
Anthony, second. Bob, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now moving on to the other items. There are two different funds. I believe, I'll let Ed take care of it, but it'll probably come out of the second fund. The donations fund, not the
Right.
general fund, obviously. And she's looking for 2 rolling indoor garbage cans, housekeeping items, and kitchen refreshments. Basically, the number, she has 120, she has everything for household keeping items. I mean, we could say 150, not to exceed 150. Does everyone have that or no?
That's
Right
fine.
here, yeah. I don't have a number on the middle one.
Right, she didn't have enough.
Okay, so I mean, $40, I imagine would be,
Not to exceed, but put
or
that.
30, you want it not to exceed 150? And then if they need, you know, I don't wanna, I mean, she's very frugal.
Yeah.
Do you wanna give her a little more room? 200? And that way she has enough that she can get what she needs, and they're not doing it every week, getting more garbage cans. Not that they're gonna be using them that much, but. All right, so not to exceed $200 to pay for the refreshments, the 2 rolling garbage cans, and the housekeeping items. Does that sound reasonable? You'd like that, I know you would. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did we have a motion?
Can I get a motion to accept that? Thank you. Anthony, second. Mr. Brown, all those in favor? Opposed?
And
Okay.
are you letting her talk to Ed about which fund? Is
Yes.
that what you want to do?
Yes. I need a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting February 2nd, 2015.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the of aging master's contract for $2,000. Yeah, I'm
It's the
not sure
Office
that
of
one.
Aging.
Office of the Agent, thank you. It's like, man, I'm not even gonna work that. For $2,000, this is the $2,000 that Scubas had gotten for the tables and chairs. So I can just sign off on that to accept the monies. Do I have a motion? Mr. Mellon, seconded by Mr. Farina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to authorize me to sign the DASNY grant application, a $50,000 grant from Senator Larkin. Do I have that motion? Mr. Brown, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? I need a motion to sign the facility usage indemnity agreement for Sacred Heart for the village election. This is for the use of the building. Trustee Farina, do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Mellon, all those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve, to approve the repairs to the senior center. This is a different motion. Approve the repairs to the senior center for $15,371.66. Majority of that's covered under the insurance, we accept $100,000. Do I have that motion? Do I have a second? All those in favor? Opposed? And a motion, we have a budget amendment. We have a resolution, whereas $20,151.39 has been received from the village's insurance company, Gallagher Bassett Services, Inc., and whereas this revenue has been designated to offset costs and repairs to the front end loader, now for there be it resolved that due to the unanticipated revenue from Gallagher Bassett Services, Inc., the Board of Trustees approves an amendment to increase the appropriation budget A5110.02 street maintenance equipment for $20,151.39, and the revenue code A2680 insurance recoveries for $21,151.39 for the fiscal year 2014-2015. Do I have a motion?
That's the end of the payment? That's been paid and complete, Gina? For the-
It's ongoing.
Okay.
Ed's actually trying to get the rest of the, there was a right now the conflict is the the actual repair bill. So Ed's still trying to get some cash out of himself. But this is so we can get past this part of it.
Okay, fine. I'll make that motion.
Trustee Mellon? Trustee Brown? Roll call?
Roll call. Trustee Farina?
Aye.
Trustee Mellon?
Aye.
Trustee Brown?
Aye.
Trustee Murphy?
Aye.
Mayor Flynn?
Aye. I have a memo from Chief Scott, authorization to stop DWI enforcement contracts calendar year 2015. Need to authorize Sergeant Lavelle, Sergeant Troy, and Chief Scott to sign DWI contracts for calendar year 2015,
And yourself.
and myself. Do I have that motion? Mr. Brown, do I have a second? Mr. Farina, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I have the resignation from Officer Peter Boutros, effective immediately. He is a part-time officer that has done a full-time job, and we hope he does well. Do I have a motion to accept his resignation? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to accept the bills and claims for fiscal year 14-15 in the amount of $64,944.08. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion we pay the bills and claims.
Motion by Mr. Brown, second by Charlie Murphy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We do have a reminder about budget workshops. You have that on the bottom of your agenda. The 2nd, the 18th, 23rd, 25th, 4th, 9th, 11th, 16th. And if you have any questions about that, you can check with Ed. Any reschedulings, check with Gina.
Could we make a recommendation to the treasurer that at least on the Mondays when we have a regular board meeting, that perhaps we could start an hour early and have the department heads in for that beginning portion, so they don't have to wait through the regular meeting?
Can we do that, Gina?
If Ed can do that, yes.
Are you guys able to go at 6 instead of 7?
Yes.
Absolutely. Good to go? Also, did we already put the change in this with the kicking the one out that we talked about? The one on the election day?
Yes,
We're not having a budget workshop on election, just so we know.
yes, I kicked that out.
I got a kickoff on that, I see that, thank you. Excellent. Public comment?
One more.
Oh, yes, we have one more motion.
Could we add to the agenda a resolution granting the National Development Council authority to designate a winner in the public bid for the consolidated wastewater facility? The resolution is, if you want to add that to the,
Yeah.
okay. Everybody vote? Add to the agenda? We have a
Oh, you want, okay.
motion to.
I need a motion to add that to the agenda?
Right. Everybody-
To add, so we can actually vote on and talk about it.
Okay.
Second? All those in favor?
I,
Okay. Whereas the National Development Council has been selected to assist the village of Highland Falls to select a competent bidder for the design, engineering, and development of a consolidated wastewater plan, which will assist the residents of the village by reducing their sanitary bills. And whereas the village has published and solicited bids for the design, engineering, and construction of this facility. And whereas the NDC has provided a recommendation that the sole bidder of the design, engineering, construction of the consolidated wastewater treatment facility, Veolia, is recommended, and now therefore the village hereby recommends and authorizes NDC to award the bid to the wastewater treatment facility for the design and engineering phase by the National Development Council. So we just need a move on that resolution, and we'll go from there.
Questions on the resolution?
I'm not certain the design, this is not gonna cost us any,
This is
There's
just like
no
a pick a winner.
provision for the payment of this, these services at this point and this time by the village.
right, well, that's what I wanna hear.
And we're not locked in anything by any of the moves we made so far.
Right.
This is so that they can pick an actual winner of the bid,
Okay.
so they can move forward.
What will ultimately happen out of this is the work will go forward. There's a risk on not on the part of the village, of course, but there's a risk by the contractor that this might not go forward, but they're willing to undertake that uncertainty because the reward at the end might be really worth it. And the reward would be that we ultimately, through the Department of the Army and the Defense and the West Point authorization, would be able to be a private, assist in the privatizing of the wastewater. Right now, West Point has a situation where they need to make a change in their facility right now. And they also want to privatize it. So in order for us to even become a competitor in this arrangement, we've had expert organizations come in. Now, at the end of the day, you say, well, who is going to pay for this? And just to make that clear for anybody who was interested in that, the bonds are underwritten, and bonds are purchased by people who want to invest in this kind of a project and receive interest expense. And who's going to pay for the bonds? Well, the customer pays for the bonds, and the customer, of course, in this particular plan would be West Point, and the Department of the Army. So, just so you see the whole picture of it and why we're going about this, our idea here is to consolidate wastewater facilities, use our own facility here, maybe I'll even expand it, and with the point in mind of reducing the cost. The whole point here is to reduce the cost to the residents and at the same time produce a revenues in excess of the expense. And why do we want revenues in excess of the expense? Because we want to pay off the bonding that has been hanging over the shoulders of each trustee who comes and sits up on that bench. And so the idea here is to improve our financial circumstances, and that's the whole thing for this thing. At the same time, we're taking advantage of a move that comes, I don't know, once every 100 years it seems. We're privatizing services and facilities at West Point. So we're trying to get on the bandwagon on that score. Lots of other organizations are providing a wide variety of services there, and the services that we think that we can do very well with, but just as we've talked about here.
Good?
Amen.
Any other questions?
No?
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the resolution? Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call trustee Farina.
Aye.
Trustee Mallon.
Aye.
Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Trustee Murphy.
I have to abstain because of an engineer working on the project.
Mayor Flynn.
Aye. Okay. More comment? Anthony?
I have
You have a lot. Don't yourself go for it.
No, I'm sorry, go
no.
ahead.
I do have one. I was over at the senior center and what we thought the TV that was donated didn't work, it does. So once we have cable hooked up, it'll be working.
Excellent. So now we have two massive TVs. One the Farina family donated, and we thank you. And one Senator Larkin, so we're buying no TVs, which is a beautiful thing. We'll save that money for the party.
No, this project, and it's, I believe it's a wonderful project, and I'm sure that if it's up and running and we have a newer plant, we'll all benefit from it. I just, usually as time went by, the request for proposals for the annex property, companies would come in and present to you this wonderful package, and you'd see it, and you have some sort of concept plan. And I'm okay with looking forward and engaging in these conversations. I just want to make sure that it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything to engage them as far as a concept. And that's always my concern, because it sounds like a great project, and I think that new plan is always better than an old one that's been remodeled. You know, so that's about all I got to say.
Very challenging.
Yeah,
It's
it's-
very
it's-
interesting to participate in making this thing come about. if
And
we
I'm
can.
concerned in how they're going to do this, whether they're gonna stack them or, I think I spoke to John briefly about it, and I thought they were gonna build up or go adjacent to the other plant, which they would need additional properties for. So this is all stuff that I have all kinds of questions as we proceed with this.
It has been determined that you don't need any additional property. You're going to, you
Yeah.
can perform all of this within the property lines perimeter of the village,
Right.
village facility. So you're not doing something that will require eminent domain or any such thing as that.
Oh, I mean,
But we want to eminent domain something soon.
Well, there may be another purpose at a different place, but not on this one.
On that, we need, particularly Mr. Mellon, to be cautious, because I really look to Bob for what I don't know, which is quite a bit. And I appreciate, sometimes you're like, I don't wanna be that guy, but please be that guy. Because I'll tell you, he is the caretaker of a lot of this type of information, and without it, things might go by. This is a very, very exciting time, because this will not happen again. It's happening now, and for the most part, it'll be done. Once the privatization is over, it will just change hands from a company to a company. We have the opportunity to be a participant in it. Been doing that, and it's a lot of new ground. And some of the things we don't know, and some we're learning as we go. But if we stand by and just let it happen, and don't attempt to be part of the situation, then we lose. And we've lost in the past. And not because of any particular person or any group of people, but because we haven't got engaged ourselves and gotten more aggressive with what is going on the other side of the gate, we lose. So this is one of several projects of privatization. Then there is more to happen. And I know I mentioned it, and a perfect example is if you don't ask, you won't get. And that's all we're doing, we're asking. We want to be a part of it. It's very similar to the fact that we just got the land the use of the land out on 293 from West Point for our leaf, for dumping our leaves, which we were budgeting up to $20,000 for. Now we will not. It will just be dumped, and we will not pay the expense. That opens a door. That opens a door. There have been attempts in the past to get land back from West Point. I think that we are in one of the best positions we're in because of some of the players over at West Point, because I think that we're working as a team, the entire community here, the town, the village, everybody's working together. And we've got to keep going. Just because we didn't get it 10 years ago and 15 years ago, it's not, we're never gonna get it, we're never gonna get it. I don't believe that. I think if we stand strong and we stand together and we have a purpose for it, then we will. This community, whether we like it or not, we do need that land. We need it to grow, and we need it to not survive. We're surviving now. But we have some of our people that are constantly moving south because you can't afford to live here. That's gotta stop. And we've gotta maintain our residents and grow our residents and continue to have one of the best communities around. Mr. Brown?
Yeah, if you noticed a few minutes ago when I was standing, I had a senior moment. My brain froze. And it was, I forgot to mention the dispatchers, which do a tremendous job of notifying the seniors, which I think that is very, very important. And I just wanted to say thank them, and I didn't want them to think that I had forgotten about them. And that's all I have to say. I think that's enough for tonight.
Charlie?
Well, I'll try to be brief. About a year ago, the mayor of Cornwall, Councilwoman June Gunson, and I attended a CSX disaster drill that was held at West Point. And I ran into the mayor of Cornwall recently, and that drill really stuck in both of our minds. And I've since become aware that Senator Larkin is concerned about the increase of these fuel cars, tankers on the railroad, and the fact that it has been recommended after some really serious explosions and problems in Canada and also in this country. And in fact, there was one within the last week in Boomer, ironically, that was the name of the community, Boomer, West Virginia. I would like us to, as a board, to sign on to a letter directed to Senator Larkin, saying we support his efforts to try to get the cars on the freight line that runs by our community upgraded to these better cars that, you know, if one goes off, the whole train doesn't go off.
Double wall,
Well, I think the old ones are double walled, but it's the DOT 111 car that should be off. And I believe, well, I live on the railroad track, so I see them go by, and they are 100 cars, and as many as 44 of these a month. So there's a lot of
44
that.
a day or a month?
A month.
Feels like 44 days.
How many trains, there's a whole bunch of trains go down every day.
And, well, the ones that are strictly as bulk and fuel.
Right.
100 tankers at a time, so,
You should just say just the fuel ones, or that 44.
yeah.
I was surprised to see that people who on the tracks were telling me that probably 80% of the product that goes down now is oil.
Yeah.
Where that wasn't the case 5 years ago. It's all tanker cars now.
And even with this recent explosion, it was one tanker apparently exploded, but because I believe they were the newer cars, it was a fire of significant proportion, and the evacuation area was half mile in,
Substantial, yeah.
so it really affects this community.
That's Main Street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because you think we can go a little further with some of the Larkins, because I'm very concerned about this trestle out here.
yeah.
Very much concerned about it. When I looked at it about 15 years ago, it was, to me, it's deteriorating. The concrete is beginning to deteriorate. It was then, what CNS says, they inspect it every year. So as the year goes by, it seems as though it might get worse, and we could have a very bad disaster here if something happened down there.
I don't remember ever fixing or doing anything.
They
'Cause
did.
I
They-
looked at that also back
They
then.
didn't, never do anything.
Yeah, and.
They just give us an excuse to
Yeah.
keep from doing anything.
At the CRC meeting this past week, Brendan Coyne, the mayor of Cornwall Hudson, had a meeting up in Cornwall with the railroad, as well as Larkin and several other people, specifically about the train tracks and what's on them. Because they also walk the tracks, and there's area missing underneath the tracks, and when they brought that to the railroad's attention, they're like, it still meets standards, don't worry, it's fine.
That's what they always say.
Oh, yeah, so they are, and I agree that we need to join them, and anyone along our shoreline. And it's, just like they're doing with the electric, bringing everyone together, not that we have to hire an attorney, but maybe we need to get with Brendan, because he had started this process with Larkin, and get a couple other communities along the Hudson together, and make sure that we're protected. Because they're that company that's counting nothing against them, Sierra's a beautiful group, but they're doing what's the cost of fixing it against the cost of one accident. And we don't wanna be the accident.
Yeah.
We don't want anyone to be the accident. So I think that's something that we need to push, because it's just like anything else, if you don't push back, they're not gonna do anything. And we need to be, Highland Falls, we can't get to a lot of places standing alone. We've gotta get with Cornwall and with Stony Point and with, Orange and Rockland communities, and see what we can do. I agree. I think that we need to move forward on it. I think it's a good idea. Charlie will have something on that next meeting,
I'll draft something.
not to worry. Anything else, Charlie? Just a few quick things. Your time's over.
No,
You did this
whoa, whoa,
last
whoa,
time.
whoa, whoa.
We're off public comment.
No, we
not public
are,
comment.
because it got interrupted by the resolution.
But you didn't hear that I went public comment. Yes, Jim.
You ready?
No, never ready for you, but I'm excited.
Excellent, excellent. Couple of things. I know in the past you guys talked about O&R, and I was wondering if you got a resolution put together that the board signed on to for the rate increases?
You talked about fighting the rate increases?
Yes.
Last meeting, we voted on becoming part of the coalition of towns that are working to deal with that.
Okay, because I have some resolutions here if you guys would like to look them over.
We can, basically, we're gonna let the lead agent that's taking it on,
Council.
They have it?
Yeah,
Yeah, they do.
we can get that stuff to council.
Without question, I think we
We'll get his
should.
name. We'll get his name for you.
But they were asking for 2,500. We felt it was a little steep last minute to ask, so, I actually talked to him this morning. He called again and wanted to know if we were participating. I said, we're definitely participating. At this point, the board voted to put $500 towards the suit. So we are one of the participants. Anything I would love to, I think you're right, we need to forward it to him, because, he could use all the information he can get.
All right, well, I'll give you this after the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just look through it, if it's good, you can utilize it, if not, there's a
Perfect.
wrap filing basket somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, so the next thing, on the sewer, I heard you talking about the sewer. I also read in the paper about $70 million. I asked this question at the town meeting, and they weren't sure about it. And it was supposed to be a meeting after last Monday's meeting, where they were gonna get together and they would have more information. My question about the $70 million was that Mr. Schumer was fighting for, is that money just allocated for the plants at West Point and the monies for the consolidated effort here, is that gonna be different money? So I was wondering if you guys had that answer to that question.
There's a whole lot of speculation. First of all, the $70 million figure is a figure that West Point, through its garrison officials, have said that's what they think it will cost to do a new plant in a new location.
No, the same location.
On West
Same
Point, right?
location. Yeah, at
On
West
West
Point,
Point.
yeah.
That's fine.
Now,
In the floodplain.
however, there's, the idea here is that if you don't, if you think think of in the terms of the Department of the Army versus a particular constituent of the Army, you say, well, 70 million, or can we pay rent for 7 million? What would we rather do? And so we are in effect a competing interest, respectfully with them. And the idea will be whether or not the West Point would be willing to try this arrangement or not, and whether or not the Army would be willing to use either 70 million or a lesser amount on a rental basis on an annually. Because ultimately, if they have 63 million left over, or whatever the arrangement is, I'm using 7 million as a hypothetical,
Yeah.
it's a make-believe figure, okay? Just so nobody takes that for real. It's a make-believe figure. So, if you're the person in charge or the committee in charge of the distribution of money, of a fixed pot that you have, the question gets to be, would it be to your advantage to only have to pay out on an annual basis a much lesser amount than the $70 million? It is, we heard the same thing that Senator Schumer was going to try to influence the Army and the Department of Defense to use $70 million. Senator Schumer doesn't really know all of the alternatives for that yet. And so it may be that as time passes, he may become acquainted with what we're trying to do as well. The second thing is that Senator Schumer now is a minority senator in terms of voters in the Senate, and that may have some bearing on whether or not everybody's going to do what Senator Schumer would like them to do.
Well, if he played nice in the past with the other side of the aisle, I'm sure we'll get it done.
Well, he didn't.
Oh, okay. So, but actually, Bill, but the question is, we know West Point's plant is failing. So obviously, we're not gonna take everything. I would hazard the guess, they're gonna upgrade that plant. Or are they gonna send us everything?
The plan is to get everything.
Yeah,
Right now, they've been allocated the 70 million. Tentatively, I think they have one more thing to pass, but West Point is confident that it will be allocated. The difference that what we're offering is sooner and the same service, if not better, for less.
Do we know the approximate amount of effluent that West Point generates per day now?
No,
They do, we don't.
yeah.
Because we're gonna need to know. Obviously, that's gonna be all in the equation for this plant.
They're working, yeah, absolutely, they're working on those details, I haven't seen anything, these are all questions
We
I
don't
have.
have it.
And I was reluctant to
To
say,
be
well, yeah.
completely
because I don't
transparent,
know.
we don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
All right, so.
For certain.
Yeah, all right, yes, I mean, I got a
There's
few
a,
more answers to the question, obviously, but I'm not
There's
saying
a-
that the town board didn't give me the answers. They were waiting to meet with, the powers that be at West Point after their meeting sometime during the week, and I'm
West
sure.
Point's not anxious to distribute that information.
Just so you know also that when people are going between the town and the village asking, right now, and I'll talk to Bob, again, communication, we're working it, but it's not every day. The village is the ones that are pursuing this, where we're bringing the town in. So if people are looking for answers to questions, they wanna check with our engineer, our lawyer, our people, because they're the ones that are actually participating in the bulk of the action.
But when the consolidation comes
Correct.
about,
That's why
then the town will
the
be
town is
involved.
without question involved. When you're looking for specifics, it's our engineer, which is actually their engineer also.
Okay.
But it's our engineer and our lawyer that are actually doing the day-to-day.
Okay, all right. Excellent. So, talking about sewage, and we have a workshop next Wednesday on consolidating the zoning part of the codes. And if you'll notice here, the South Post is in the village.
Right.
And it is in a zone in the village. So, things that they do on the South Post, i.e., any new projects, change of uses, they have never come before the planning board. So, if that's gonna continue to be the case, like the Palisades is in the town, they have a certain district for the Palisades, we should probably look at that. But, I
Does the
don't think
Palisades
it's.
come to the town?
No,
if things
no,
are
no,
changed?
no, they have a certain zone that's zone the Palisades. Lots of other municipalities that have state land or federal land, they have a particular zone that's called federal lands, and there's certain things, obviously, we really have no say in, which is fine, they can do what they want. But my concern here is on the South Post, i.e. the 5-star. If they're going to tear this down and they're talking about privatization,
It's
so
already
you have a
privatized.
private entity coming in, putting up a larger hotel that's giving us effluent into our system, but the planning board has nothing to do with this.
As you may know, South Coast is a particular, issue with me. You're absolutely right, the plan is to make the 5-star bigger, change it radically, and in the latest assembly, the journal that goes out to old grads, not only are we aware that they have plans to completely redo the visitor center, but in this latest issue, they've got architectural renderings published. Thursday, there's a community outreach meeting, and that committee is actually quite good because we get representation from the community as well as West Point, and they've been quite reasonable about hearing issues. Like initially, the visitor center was going to have a food court in it, which would be yet another layer of competition with local businesses. That's completely off the table now. But my position has been that if you're doing something that has an architectural impact on a community that has a lot of buildings on the National Register of Historic Places, they do need to talk to our planning board. I don't think they were fully aware of the fact that the 5-star, their contiguous property is on the National Register. That automatically puts them into a position that they have to contact NISHBO, the New York State historic people. They're also subject to coastal zone management, so they have to a certain degree, come and at least discuss these things. And even if we're not in a position to say no to them, they've got to meet other standards.
But see, here's my concern, is it going to be privatized?
Well, the 5-star already is private.
Right, so it's private, so it's a private entity. Now, anything that they do at West Point, I have no problem. On the federal government, i.e. when they put up the new barracks, things like that, that's for the government, that's fine. But when it's a private entity that's coming in, and they are in a zone district that's in the village now, they should abide, being that it's a private entity, abide by the village zones and codes.
And I think they should pay taxes too, but so far the federal government isn't going along with my perspective.
Or if not, then what we need to do when we are working on this zoning and the new zoning map is take them out of our picture.
I don't want to do that. I want to get them
I wanna-
to talk
I
to
want to
us.
put the fair and a couple other pieces on our picture.
Yeah.
And then somehow legally say that they're
Well,
part of the village.
There you go.
The Thayer isn't in a zone that's established now. The five-star is, everything on,
Right.
that's all in an established zone. So that's why I'm just saying, if it's an established zone and it's in the village, I think they should abide by it. Whatever they do on the other side of the gate, that's fine, that's part of the federal government. I don't have any problem with any of that. My question and concern is, especially so close to the village, and i.e., a food court would devastate the shops,
Right.
on that end of the village. So I hope we can work on something like that. especially-
Charlie's actually headlining whatever is possible on South Coast, particularly with the five-star. But looking at all the facilities, as part of the, I don't know if it's still part of the project, once the new building's built on West Point, to take down the major building there and leave it down. That's also been discussed as part of the new plans within 3 to 5 years.
You mean the,
Spelman,
oh, take down spell?
and not rebuild there, leave it as open space. That's one of the definite pieces that's in discussion right now. Because the group that's there right now, the
Cyber.
cyber group, is they're building a building on West Point. So you're looking at 2 to 3 years for that to be complete, moved in, and then the goal was to take down Spelman and leave it for open space.
Or parking. All right, so let's get off of that one. The next thing is, the zoning codes, we're gonna work on that. It seems like when I did a quick brief thing on it, Charlie, we might have to end up with like 12 zones, which is fine. They'll all be designated like we talked about, and I look forward to our meeting next Wednesday. If you need any other information, just give me a call, all right, on that stuff?
Okay.
Then the police department, I asked, again, the town supervisor. Because he said it looks like it was gonna go up for a vote. That's what you had spoke to him about, is that true?
Yes.
Yeah? Do we know when it's gonna get put on the ballot?
Our goal is November.
November, all right. Only because I'm looking for some preliminary numbers. And based on what the chief said in the paper that I read, was that we would have full-time detectives throughout the town, which is fine.
That's what they're proposing to the board.
Yeah, which is fine, so that's why I was looking for a preliminary number, nothing that I would hold anybody to. Because this way then we can say, we can look at the combined fund, and I believe it's 57.5% that the village residents pay now. So if we had, I know there's the wish list, and then there's the other list, and we're gonna meet somewhere in the middle, right? So, which is fine, but at least the village voters will be aware of the potential of what it's gonna cost them at that 57.5%, and then the town also. Same with the planning board. The planning board, my question there is, being the town's going to be in charge of it, I guess, right? Are we going to go with the stipends that the town gets now, or what the village gets now? And
That would be part of the consolidation.
part of the consolidation. So are we anticipating using their stipend that the members get now?
I'm looking for you and the head of the town to come together on a proposal, just like we did with the police.
So with that being said, they're gonna be doing twice as much work. So if you use their stipend, which is higher than the stipend that the village board gets, and the village board, and you can talk to any one of them, because I told them, we do this because we love our village. It's not about the money, because if it's about the money, we wouldn't be up there. So, doing twice as much work, we would probably have to hazard to guess that their stipend's gonna go up a little. Possibly. So even if it doesn't go up and you kept some of my figures, looking at some of my figures, it seems like the village residents that pay $12,000 now for planning issues would end up paying $14,000. And the town residents that pay $18,000 are gonna end up paying $10,000. And
Good
those
for
are my
them.
preliminary numbers.
That's fantastic, because they'll probably end up paying a little bit more for the police. You're right, the few $1,000s, and I need to see your numbers to say that those are correct. But let's say they are. I have no problem with that. As a village resident, I would have no problem paying an extra $2,000 on planning if I'm saving $10,000 on police and getting a better police department.
But you work 3 jobs, and we have residents in the village that are retired on fixed incomes that might not be able to afford the.
You're not hearing
extra-
me. I'm saving $8,000.
Yeah, collectively, I think it's gonna be
The
safe.
planning board, and I still don't, I gotta see these numbers, because here's the thing. Right now, you're saying that the planning, right now, the planning board for the town is Fort Montgomery.
Correct.
They're not on the A list?
No.
Okay. So that is a big difference, the fact that they're just dealing with Fort Montgomery, and our planning board is dealing with Highland Falls, which has twice the amount of people. So then I could see those numbers, that they will jive the way you're saying. Same amount of people dealing with the whole thing, if it goes up, may pay an extra $2,000 for the planning board, which is why we're consolidating the entire town. Let's not forget the $800,000 to a possible $1 million that the state representative sat here and told us, that's what we can get if we fully consolidate. So that offsets the 2,000.
But that goes to the people that it's gonna affect the most, and it was my understanding that that's gonna be the
No.
town residents that are
No,
gonna get.
no. It goes to offset taxes. We control how it offsets taxes. 80% of that money has to go to offset taxes. 20% of that money can go to other things,
So the
like
80%
projects.
should get cut, just like the A fund.
I'm,
57%.
I'll tell you what I'm gonna
from
do,
village
I'm not even
residents.
gonna have that conversation, because here's the thing, we have several grants going into play right now for people that actually do this for a living. They will do it, they will break all the numbers down for us, they will show us exactly where all the numbers are going and present it to us. Then, we can say, I'd rather have that money go over there. But let's not throw a lot of numbers around into the air and confuse a lot of people without having something on paper, in front of people, and have it done by somebody, I know, you can do it, because you do it with the planning board, you have the numbers, it's very easy. For me up here, without having anything in front of me, I don't wanna debate any numbers, but I agree with your numbers with the planning board. But when you look at the entire town and village consolidated, that's where we win. And we are without question gonna win financially, but what we have to do is understand that financial is only a part of the consolidation win. The fact that we will have exactly what you're doing tonight. I went down to the town meeting and they told me this. Now I come over to the village meeting, they told me this. I gotta go back to the town meeting. Too many chiefs. One guy, one woman in charge, one person in charge. That's it. One person to answer to, one person that's a question, question's done. That's been one of our biggest problems over the last 30, 40, 50 years. That's why I think that we've had so many problems. That's why I think we have lost things that we shouldn't have lost. Because everyone's blaming each other, it's their responsibility.
It's not blaming.
No,
I wanna be
I'm
on
not talking about
board.
you, I'm talking about the town and the village. Where, no, that's their responsibility, it's our responsibility, and I'll keep bringing it up, Memorial Park. Thank God we actually take care of it. 2/3 of it is the town. How is that possible? We have one group, there's only 6,000 of us here. There are much bigger towns that only have one government. We need the efficiency in dealing with West Point, the county, the state, that's the win.
And that's why, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking for, some preliminary numbers.
As soon as we-
So I can be on board.
As soon as we have those, you'll have
Quite
it.
for you. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Without having the preliminary numbers, then we sit here speculate, and we could just take
Right.
both of the numbers that are in those 2 budgets now, shave a little bit of off, and then put them together and say, 57%, we're not saving the village anything. That's why I would like to see.
Right, that's why we're gonna let the professionals do it, and that's why I haven't brought up any numbers, with the exception of what the police put together themselves as a preliminary, and that is, as we said, the wish list. When you talk about 2 full-time detectives and 2 part-time detectives for this community, that would be beautiful. We can't afford it, so that will be shaved. But I wanna let the professionals do it, they'll bring us the numbers, they'll show us why they work out and exactly where they go, then we can start pulling it apart.
Excellent, so let's look at something that Mr. Brown brought up tonight, the dispatchers. They do a phenomenal job, they do extra things above and beyond. they have a program that they call the seniors, to make sure they're all right, especially on days that we're getting, god-awful frigid temperatures and things like that. We know for a fact the town does not want dispatchers. Are we going to at least get some kind of program in place that can still address our seniors?
One, I don't believe that statement. And this is what people need to understand. Where everyone says we consolidate, the village loses, the village doesn't lose. The village is part of the town. The village is 2/3 of the town. Right now, we have 5 villagers on this board. Once this board dissolves, I'm hoping some of these 5 villagers will look to go to the town. We'll have more villagers on the town. I don't think we need them. I could have 5 people from Fort Montgomery or 5 people from Highland Falls, as long as they care about the entire town. It doesn't matter. Right now, this board in the town has pushed to go to 911. I hear a lot of things. I hear 2 or 3 of the groups on 911 aren't happy with it. They like to go back to local dispatch. We don't know exactly what's gonna happen. I personally, I can't speak for the board. I personally think that having dispatch is very important. And I think that, and I've tried to work with them to make sure that they let the community know how important they are. And that's what we are doing. But again, let's not continue this conversation until I can get you some more concrete information on numbers and whatnot.
Right, well, that's what, I'm just asking if it happened that we didn't have the dispatcher service, I was hoping that somehow, some way, we could start another program that would take care of the seniors. That's, you know, that's what I'm asking, you know? So
Don't-
keep that
don't-
in
yeah,
mind,
Don't look for it to go.
keep that in mind.
Yeah, we're not looking for it to
When we're
go.
working to get it together. That should be a line item somewhere in my opinion. I had 2 other things. And I know you want to eat that cake up there.
Jimmy went to see Fred Brennan last week with his plaque and the proclamation, and Fred was so appreciative of Jimmy's time and that recommendation and the proclamation you guys did.
Excellent.
So Jimmy should be commended for that.
Thank you, Jim.
No
Appreciate it.
problem. Put a tear in Fred's eyes.
It did.
To get a little pocket notebook, just so you guys.
He made me carry that plaque all over that facility.
So he's,
For the next 2
he's good to
hours.
go. If anybody has an opportunity to stop out and visit him, please, right?
I'm sorry, what?
If anybody has an opportunity to stop out and visit him,
That'd be fantastic.
he's out there waiting, except on Thursdays, because
He's
he
got a
may be
committee.
going to ShopRite on
And he's on a
Thursdays.
committee.
No kidding, yeah.
That's all I'm gonna get, out tonight. I mean, I have a couple other things, and we can discuss them now.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, we have the treasurer's report, but read first my final board things. I did find the note here. Mr. Brown was married to Reese for 53 years. 53. 6 children, 15 grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren. He plays no games. I dig it. Once again, thank you. Just a couple quick things. It is Fat Tuesday. Woo! Lent starts tomorrow. Do what you have to do. I've got king cake here for after the meeting. I do want this board to seriously get involved. The discussion has been going around for several months now about the center possibly utilizing the elementary school on Mountain Avenue. The board has started to discuss it, I believe. I know we've talked about it with a couple of board members, but I would like to get this board officially behind the center, moving them to that and helping them, because that building, we need to get behind it as a board to start utilizing it to its potential and not letting it go to the wayside and having a building that we're gonna have to spend a lot of money tearing down. And lastly, before the treasurer's report, the treasurer, our village prosecutor, myself, attended the Association of Towns and Villages this weekend. Last night, we had a meeting with the county executive and the deputy county executive for a little over 3.5, 4 hours, with several other vendors, several other people in the county. I think it was very, very good and necessary. As much as I hate going down there, Ed continues to drag me. And every year he looks over and I'm like, yes, it was worth it. Because we need to do this networking At the meeting, we met a possible vendor we're gonna be bringing in to assist our village. And it's at these meetings, when you spend a couple hours with the county exec, that he finally gives in and says, all right, what can I do for you? Rather than just get the one phone, hey, we need help. It's the time spent, and I appreciate the treasurer and our prosecutor going down, making that time. And lastly, because I promised at 7:30, I was really shooting for 7:30, but I wasn't here yet. Treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. If you want a second, Mayor, I think it's great that there's opportunity to speak with the county exec and put the village on the map. You know, the county, we're kind of in the corner of the county. Some people think we're in Rockland, actually. By being at some of these meetings, people actually get to see that village, the town, it's all part of Orange County, and the villages gets as much opportunity as any of the other villages and towns in the county. So I thought it was excellent too, absolutely. Revenue and expense control report was prepared. The main thing I just want you to note is that our snow removal and our salt costs are rising. I think bills and claims are almost $20,000 in salt, just this last bills and claims. So all villages and towns are dealing with this, but certainly it's gonna challenge our budget as far as the costs are concerned. There's about $20,000 left in the snow overtime budget. And what's good is that now that we've broken out snow overtime, we actually can see where we're at with a measuring stick. So it works out well. So those are the main takeaways from the revenue and expense control report. And again, as usual, if any questions do come up, let me know. We do have some revenue still coming in. There's one more sales tax revenue coming in. Then we're going to have our special funds, sewer, water. There'll be bills going out, and those funds will obviously need those that money. One being in May, the other being in June. We have our budget meeting scheduled. I provided the board with a copy. That's proposed. If departments, if there's some snag where we got to slide departments, I need to know that tomorrow. So
We're canceling the 18th because of the election. And we're on the ones that we're doing meetings, same meeting. We're wondering, I don't know if you're able to, are you able to be here at 6?
it's tough.
Okay.
Do maybe 6:30, if
Okay.
that would be helpful.
If that way we're trying to get as much of the budget done, maybe push the meeting back a little bit so that we can get that budget piece done up front.
Okay.
And that way, you know, do what we have to do.
Okay. Tomorrow's meeting is obviously a rollout meeting, so I think we could probably keep that at 7, because I don't think we're gonna go deep into the night with tomorrow's meeting. But then after the next meeting that comes up, I'll have the spreadsheets, and then we'll start to really get into the nuts and bolts of the prep of the budget. I did pick up yesterday in the Association of Towns, they had a very good training discussion about fund balance. Because there's a mysterious thing out there as to what should your fund balance be? What percent? How much money? And the Office of State Comptroller does not give you guidance on that. The state law says it has to be reasonable. Okay, well, that's open to a lot of interpretation. So it is one of the discussions I want to have with the board of what the board feels is reasonable. And we do need to develop a fund balance policy so we stick to it. It is recommended by the State Comptroller's Office that we have a policy. What do we want our fund balances to be? 25% of the overall budget? Do we want it to be 20? Do we want it to be 15? You know, that's going to have to be a discussion. So I felt that was a great takeaway yesterday in the discussions with the Comptroller's Office. One of the nice things yesterday, we got a chance to speak with our financial advisor and bond counsel for the big 1.5 and change note that we're going to be floating on the 24th of February. It's my anticipation, if we get the same type of response that we got on the earlier offerings, that we'll probably shave close to 100 basis points off the interest rate, and that interest rate expense will net about I'd say $10,000 to $20,000 back to the village coffers that we're not paying in interest by using some of the local banks that we've been using previously. Now, Orange County Trust and some of the local banks are very important for short-term financing. But when you have bands like we have now, putting it out on the open market where your Jeffries and company and a lot of your bigger financial companies are interested in that kind of note, and it's municipal, they'll bid on it, and we should see interest rates below 1%. So that, instead of paying that 10 to 20,000 in interest rates, it comes back to the village treasury to use on other things. So that, I'm looking forward, we'll have the results of that on the 24th. In Port Jefferson, Munistat is gonna take care of that. And Noah will call me in the afternoon after and let me know how that happened, and I'll forward that to everybody here. What that will also do for our debt is that our debt will cycle once a year. So we have one closing, one financial preparation of the documents, and one time where we have to seek out the funding. So we're gonna save in legal fees, we're gonna save in the financial fees of prepping the documents, and we're gonna have a pretty solid framework as far as our debt going forward. Okay, so March 10th is going to really be our day that we're going to have our money, our bonds need to be refinanced. And as far as capital planning for the future, the board should consider thinking forward for next March whether or not we need any borrowing for capital purposes, sewer, water, or any other infrastructure items, so that our debt cycles once a year about the same point, and we're not chasing for money, we have it ready as a plan in what we're doing, okay? So I look forward to good results there. The Office of State Comptroller contacted me about our AUD, and he had one minor thing about how we're doing, how we're assigning fund balance with codes. They're doing it with all the towns and villages. In 2010, they changed the codes from 2 to 5, and they want them to be more stratified, so we made the adjustments to that. He certified our AUD, and we're good. Our AUD is good and correct for the fiscal year 2014. Still waiting on Nugent and Hausler. I put a call into them to get the results of the audit. I understand that the principal right now is looking at it and should have some information forthcoming. I would suspect that easily by our next treasurer's report, I'll have an update on that, and as soon as I get the audit, all board members will be provided with a copy of it. I did want to talk about the AUD as far as fund balance. I'm expecting the audit to show similar, if not exact, figures. But right now, and I want to really give a lot of credit to this board. In the last 2 years, this board, with the austerity, with the efforts that you put forward, you have enhanced the fund balances in all 3 funds in the village. 2 years ago, the general fund balance was at 585 and change, 585,000, almost 586,000. Today, you're at $801,000, okay? So in 2 years, you've been able to help that fund by over $200,000 by obviously spending less than you're bringing in. And that then becomes a savings account. So fund balance you can think of for anybody that wants just to know a little bit more. Fund balance is like your own savings account. So if you spend less money than you take in appropriations, the residuals carry over to the next year. The guide is, again, reasonable. We should have a certain amount of fund balance for emergencies, for rainy days. Even though they don't want to call it a rainy day fund, sometimes you have things that come up like contracts settle, and you need funds to take care of that. So the general fund moved up nicely. The water fund, the fund balance 2 years ago was $192,806. Right now with this AUD, it went to $311,653. And then finally the sewer, which is $145,451 2 years ago, is now at $226,711. So now with the board's decision to increase the water rates, obviously that will help you properly structure the fund balance and then be able to deal with the infrastructure in sewer and water, because both of them are affected by those changes. So the board, I feel you've done a really good job as far as getting us to a point where the fund balance is starting to protect activities. And these numbers, I think, are really, I think a citizen in the village should really feel strongly that the direction of the finances are in the right direction with fund balances like that. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I think that's it. That covers the whole report for this month.
Ed mentioned it, and I just wanted to redo it. There's always been in the past, you know, you can get information on the overtime. you know, with the sheets and everything else, so if you wanna know what overtime was, but actually taking it out and giving a line item really gives us a better idea right in front of us, what's going on, and that affected us greatly this year by seeing the overtime. Now, you know, when we go into budget, we decide, do we have to adjust that at all, or do we just have to be on top of the department heads from day one, making sure? And I think that, because we're doing that, again, we're also saving, quite a bit of money by being on top of the overtime situation.
The bond information is great news. I did have a question though on the fund balance, and, you know, I tried to figure out what it is percent-wise. The general fund is
General fund, you're looking at about
13%.
just over 4 million. And
Oh, so-
your individual funds, your water's around $1 million, and your, your water's around 750, and your sewer's around $1 million, $1.1 million. Your overall budget's approximately 6 million. So
it's
when you,
about 13%.
yeah, I didn't do the percentages, but you're probably at 800,000, you're about 1/5, so you're about almost 20% on your fund balance. From what was before, at 585, maybe you're looking at about 13% or 12%.
Well, when we look at fund balance, does that include reserve funds?
There's an assigned fund balance and an unassigned fund balance. This goes into the 5 categories. Your reserve funds technically are fund balance, but they are assigned. So they are for a specific purpose. They're not they're appropriated, I guess you could say. Like when we appropriate money for fund balance for the budget, that's already spoken for, okay? Where your unassigned fund balance is the money that you actually have as a residual of your activities over the years. It's not just last year, the year before, but all of the years that you've had the budget, whether you've been in deficit or in a surplus, that fund balance changes based on your activities. So like this year, you guys are having some serious challenges, not from your own doing, but from contracts that were 3 years old that had to settle, from buildings that you had to tear down because they were essentially dangerous, and you had to front the money for that. That all comes out of your fund balance, but some of those things you're going to get back. When the tax levy and that potentially gets levied, all the back taxes, you will be made whole by the county for that.
Well, in terms of coming up with a policy, if we wanted to establish 20% fund balance, that 20% would not include reserves, or what?
I believe the way the comptroller looks at it, and I'll check that, I believe it includes reserves.
Ed, does this number reflect reserve funds?
I believe it does, but I'll check that, because this was off of the AUD, and I wasn't looking at whether it was assigned or unassigned.
Right.
It was just a total, that was the aggregate. I believe it does include the reserves. Now, in this case here, there is no reserves yet because they haven't been assigned. So technically, it would include the reserves, but this number really doesn't show it because you don't have any reserve funds until this year. Okay, now, the board still has to resolve to put those reserve funds into a financial institution. Now, we've purposely waited because we had some concerns, like with the fire department, where things came up that made the board have to make decisions to reroute certain dollars. But there is certain reserve funds that I would say probably by April, you want to resolve to get those to those financial institutions so that they are in those budgetary decisions that you made last May.
What do you do with the money in the reserves?
They go into a account that is essentially protected, like you guys can't invest it in the Jamaican lottery, okay? But you, well, believe it or not, there was one municipality that actually did that and lost everything.
That's awesome. Who?
I won't go
Gotta be
into
in it to win it.
Oh, my lord.
But
Not even the New York lottery.
yeah.
You take it to Vegas.
The person just got completely, it was an older gentleman that I guess maybe just figured to put it on black or put it on red, I don't know. But yeah, so you're gonna, like, one of the examples are the class accounts. They're essentially financial accounts that are in a very conservative investment. They don't make a lot of interest because interest rates are so low, but you kind of, when you have low interest rates, you can benefit sometimes and you can not benefit. You're gonna benefit from the bonds. That bond at 100 basis points lower is gonna put more money back into your treasury. But likewise, if that's what bonds are going for, you know that the interest rate for money that's put away is going to be lower than that. So a lot of class accounts are definitely below 1%. But they are protected and they are there for a specific purpose that the board has access to when your capital planning presents a case where you need something. So instead of bonding money for fire trucks, police cars, dump trucks, that's why you have the reserve funds, so that you're not borrowing money for this type of infrastructure or not this type of capital equipment, but you're using bonding for things that you're going to get money back for, like sewer pipes, that there's revenue that will come from new sewer pipes, water pipes that don't break, so you don't have water going down the drain that you've processed, that you paid to process, and now with good water pipes, you're going to be able to utilize 99% of the water that flows through those pipes to your customers in the village.
Okay, this may be a naive question, but with these reserve funds, I'm aware that a bank locally right now has a 2% on a 2-year CD. Can we as a municipality take advantage of that
As
fund?
long as it is a savings bank, can't be a credit union, it can't be, it has to be essentially a protected, state authorized institution. And if we have any specific institutions that we'd like instead of the New York class is used by a lot of municipalities because everybody knows that it's an approved methodology. But there are other institutions, and maybe the local savings bank could be eligible for us to invest the funds into. We just have to identify it and contact off-state comptroller and make sure that we're doing it correctly.
You have to resolve that we would do business with that bank. We normally do when we do a reorganization meeting. We say we'll do banks, and you think of all of the banks that you might want to be doing business with so that you don't limit yourself.
What about the insurance on the investments at a local establishment? Would that, when these reserve funds grow, would we lose the ability to do business at that point? If our amounts that are in reserves.
No, we have collateralized letters that essentially protect our assets if we're over the limit, 250,000 or whatever, I think it's 250 or was it 400?
250.
Yeah, so once we're over 250,000, you have collateralized letters, which are other banks acting as collateral, so that if the bank went under, you don't lose all of your village assets.
Cool. Hey, thank you so much. Good news, Mr. Brown.
One more thing I would like to stay on top of. We had a discussion about the emergency
Yes.
plan being in place. And the reason I thought about that was because they was talking about deadly winds and deadly cold, and in case somebody's furnace went out, they couldn't stay in the house because it's too cold.
Exactly.
So I'd like to have a plan, someplace set up for the emergency purpose.
Thank you. I think what we need to do in following up on that is get in touch with the Emergency Repairs Committee. You know, again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but we have to be in better communication with them. Because when you asked me that question, I should have had the answer.
Yeah, right.
I should have been like, oh, well, we do this, this, and this, and I don't. So that's where we're at right now. And I think we need to know that that committee is not, it's a town committee. Town committee means they're working for us too. So we need to make sure that what is in place for the village, and if we're not happy with it, we need to go to them and say, what do we need to do to get you to where we're comfortable with?
I think Tim Connors.
Yes. Is he still in charge?
He is, but he is sort of in a hiatus right now. But he'll be back.
There's a whole group, so.
Yeah, there's a plan that is at least in draft form.
And it was a little bit frightening when they kept talking about strong wind and deadly temperature, and people's heat go out, they can't stay in the house, they gotta get out of there.
Exactly, and we did have a discussion at our last, our two department head meetings ago, when the first major storm was coming on, about what would happen, and we had fire and ambulance there. And Bill Strobel suggested if we only have a few, utilize the ambulance corps, because they could take on 5 to 10 people, and you don't have to open up the entire fire department.
But the fire department was ready.
The fire department was ready, and they said, we'll open up if need be, but it's a much more involved process to maintain and man the fire department. So that, again, this is something we do need to know. Exactly, can we do 4, can we do 8, can we do 9 at the ambulance corps? How many? With the ambulance corps people, that's it. Now we know we contact the fire department, open up the firehouse. And then the other biggest thing that the fire was talking about is, this isn't a long-term issue. So we need to know where they're going, how we're gonna get them there. You know, do we have the ability to set something up for long-term? If so, what do we do? So these are things that we have to, again, a lot of this might already be set with the Emergency Preparedness Committee. We just need to get that information, get it back to our villagers so they know, and get it back to us so we know, so that we can fill in the blanks where we feel they are. And I thank you, that's key, because that's something no one thinks about until it's too late. But you were ahead of the game, so I will try to get a hold of Tim, if not someone from the committee, and get an update about where we are at in case of blackout, in case of, you know, each instance. You know, we've had a decent amount of those coming through the year, so they have an idea of what's been hitting the town. Okay? Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming. I need a motion to adjourn with no executive session. In honor of Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
No executive session.
So moved.
Yes. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Wow, this is
Done.
you, right?
If you're in for king cake, get up here, because I'm having some king cake.